Everybody, welcome to Buffalo Plus and Buffalo Plus on YouTube. Mike Catalana, Dan Fates, Jenna Cottrell with the schedules out. And oh, how about those Bills, Jenna? I mean, even the team is tweeting out the new name.
Yeah, they call themselves now the Primetime Bills. That's their new handle on Twitter. 4 primetime games for Buffalo. I mean, that's the most they've had since we saw the stat. It was 1996. I think that says a lot about how the league now views the Bills and the fact that there's the expectations for them to be a pretty good team in this league and a team that can win a lot. So now it's up to Buffalo.
Yeah, Dan, they're losing what they used last year, right? It's gone now.
They are no longer this underdog team that nobody's going to talk about. The national media is going to be forced to talk about the Bills because they're going to be in their face 4 times, could be 5 this year, could be 4 weeks in a row later in the season, weeks 12 through 15, 12 through 16. So, yeah, this is going to be a new team that is going to have to get used to a new mindset. They're going to have to block it out and just kind of keep going with this process. But this is a legitimate team that's going to get national respect or is going to get national attention. I don't know about respect. I still think they have to earn that respect, but they're going to get attention.
Well, and I think it's interesting that 3 of the 4 games are in the second half of the season. I mean, let's be honest. Yeah. You know, the Bills are not the Patriots that have done this year after year. Yes, they've made the playoffs 2 out of 3, but you know, the networks get a little antsy when you're talking about those late season games. Now, again, some of those, if it's a Sunday night game, it could be flexed out. They got flexed into the game last year. They got a Monday night game at San Francisco. They're going to be on that game. They're not changing that around. So I think the league is believing in the Bills. I think the networks are saying, okay, we'll take Buffalo. And look, it was against Pittsburgh and Dallas in their 2 biggest games last year. But Jenna, they did put up good TV numbers, and good TV numbers counts for something.
Yeah, and they did win both of those games. So I think when you look at it, like the Bills have been knocking on the door of trying to get that national attention. We know Bills Mafia always stands up regardless. But I think, you know, that Thanksgiving game, I think, changed a lot because that game was huge for the team in terms of on a national stage going down to Dallas on Thanksgiving when everyone's with their family, everyone's watching the game, and to put on a show like that and to have the Bills travel as well as they did as well going down to Texas. I think that made a lot of people in the league realize, okay, this team, they travel well and they can win. And that's a look that Buffalo hasn't seen in a while.
And before we get to those primetime games later in the year, Mike, like you talked about, I look at the schedule and I think that the most crucial part of this schedule starts in week 4 because I think they can really kind of pick up some steam early in the year. Home against the Jets, at Miami, you don't know who's going to be the quarterback. That could be Tua's second start or Ryan Fitzpatrick. And then you have the Rams coming all the way from the West Coast to Orchard Park. So I think you can kind of think 3 wins there. And then all of a sudden you start looking at going to Las Vegas, which we have no idea what that environment's going to be like. That could be a great home field advantage. I don't know. Then you go to Tennessee, which likes to play a muddy game. And then you have the Chiefs coming to you on Thursday night. And yeah, I know that place, as long as there are fans, will be rocking. But that's still Patrick Mahomes coming to town. And you got to pick yourself up to go back to the Jets. So, that's a very tricky part of the schedule where you're going west to Las Vegas, could be a loss, possibly to Tennessee, where they barely squeaked out a win against Marcus Mariota last year. And then you have the Chiefs. That could be the 3 losses to pick yourself up and then have to go to the Meadowlands to win. That's the part of the schedule that I'm looking at even before I look at, those primetime games late in the year.
Yeah, you make really good points about it. I guess I have to look at this schedule 2 different ways. I got to look at it one way, like it's just the regular NFL year, and the stands are going to be packed, and it's going to be loud, and it's going to be a plus for the Bills when they're playing Kansas City on that Thursday night, and they're chasing Mahomes all over the place. And then when they go on the road at a place like Denver and you say, you know, can they deal with the atmosphere, which you know, is obviously going to still be the case, you know, with the altitude, not the atmosphere. I guess there would be no atmosphere if there was no fans. But with the altitude and all that, that still would be the case. But we talk about the fans. And then there's the other part that says, okay, what if they're playing these same games and there's not going to be fans in the stands, that it's an empty stadium that they're playing? So now you look more at the specific team and you don't have that other part of the game. I think it makes it fascinating to try to break down what this schedule can be. But it's definitely a more interesting schedule than we've seen in the past few years. Because look at the teams there. Look at these Western teams they're playing. I mean, Arizona with Kyler Murray and everybody they picked up getting DeAndre Hopkins. Then you're already playing against the two teams that were in the Super Bowl. You got Pittsburgh again, getting Big Ben back. You got Kansas City, if that was a home game for a primetime game.
This is what happens
when you're good.
This is what happens when you make the playoffs. But I think what we can look at is they never had 3 road games in a row, which is nice. And those West Coast trips for the most part are broken up. They go to Vegas in week 4. They go to Arizona in week 10. They go to San Fran in week 13. So they didn't really get any, grueling backs, kind of stuff like that. So I think this is a fair schedule. I think that whatever you're a fan and you thought, okay, I think they're a 10-6 team, I still think that this schedule doesn't change any of that. I still think that this is a fair schedule, and this didn't change what my outlook on the win-loss of the season.
I think it would be hard to change that. I think you're right. I mean, we already knew the teams they were playing. But to Dan's point, sometimes that schedule is really alarming at certain points. And you're like, wow. I do think, at the end, those primetime games, I mean, you got to sort of be used to doing that and handling that and playing in that game and then coming right back the next week with them back to back. Yeah. 4 straight night games is a possibility for the Buffalo Bills.
Crazy.
It is, right? It just didn't happen before. And so now it's different. Now they're perceived differently. But I'm also it's going to be very interesting to see how teams start out. Like, we may get a totally different feel of a team early in the season, maybe even like a Las Vegas team. We don't know because they got some changes, different players coming in and out, as opposed to what you might see about that same team later in the year. Like, Denver made a lot of changes this year. You're going to be playing Denver week 16 or week 15 of the season. I mean, maybe I'm just picking a guy. Drew Lock has got his game together. They drafted some young wide receivers. That team could look very different late in a season than they do early in the year, especially with this odd off season where we don't know how much teams are going to get together. Whereas the Bills, we've talked about it a lot, they're bringing most guys back. So I think that gives them an edge on most teams all season.
Well, and you talk about it too, like how different a team can look by the end of the year. I just look at Miami. You play them week 2 and then you don't play them again until week 17.
Yeah.
I mean, what if Fitzpatrick starts at first and then Tua comes in later on in the season? Or what if Tua's the starter and he's had, 16, 15 games to really get himself and his legs in the NFL? And that's a divisional game, and that can be huge. Now, Dan mentioned when we were on Facebook Live the fact that he thinks, around week 15, that would be possibly when the Bills would already have, wrapped up maybe a postseason spot. But it's interesting to look at and see only 9 1 p.m. starts.
Yeah.
When
almost every game that I've covered for the Bills.
Yeah. Our job just got tougher.
They're king of the 1 o'clock. They're king of the 1 o'clock starts. Now, I still love the 1 o'clock starts. I think it's fun. I mean, you're ready to go. Everybody's there. But we know there's more eyeballs on those games later. It's fun. It's fun when everybody's watching the team you're covering, or the fans are the team the fans love, and everybody's watching them. And they did show up in those games last year. They really did. I mean, they put on a pretty good show. Heck, even the Houston game they lost, they put on a show. That late New England game was fun. Yeah. And certainly the Dallas game and the Pittsburgh games were wins. So
it was entertaining.
They have been entertaining.
Hey, I mean, if you're talking about you wanting your product to sell, people to have eyeballs, like Josh Allen is a very polarizing figure.
Yeah.
And because of that, because of the talent they put around him, that's going to draw people to their TV screens, whether they like him or not.
Well, it was interesting, Jenna. You talked about a polarizing quarterback and talent around him. That sounds like a Browns team from a year ago.
Yeah, but hold on. But hold on.
No,
let me finish.
Hold on.
Let me finish.
Headline.
Head coach was.
Absolutely. Let me finish. I'm not saying they are the Browns, but it's interesting. That's what networks like. A polarizing figure and big names. Now they're going to be able to talk about Stephon Diggs. Yeah. They're going to be able to talk about Trey White. They're going to be able to talk about Tremaine Edmonds being only 22 years old and all of those things. Like, there are now stories going into when they play a Bills game compared to the 1 o'clock game where you have a couple tidbits on a player where, the biggest storyline probably, if the Bills didn't make a step like they made, it'd be Reed Ferguson and his brother playing when they play the Dolphins. Like, now there are real storylines.
Well,
Nothing. I love long snappers. I respect them, but that's a tidbit. That's
well, we used to always joke, who's up when they're teasing the game, the Monday night game? They're playing the 49ers. You know, even when the Bills would get their one game some Thursday, and you're like, who are they putting up there? Who's the guy? Was it like Fitz? Was it whoever it was? Well, you know, it's Josh Allen, but it could be Diggs. It could be, you know, Trey White. It could be Tremaine Edmonds. It could be Devin Singletary. Could be all these
Micah
guys.
Hyde.
Right. That at least now are guys that have been around the league, have had success, and have been there. And look, a lot of fans made judgments on Josh Allen from that Pittsburgh or the Dallas game, and then the way he played in the playoffs, and they think they had their mind up. This year, he'll get multiple chances to show them, and I think it adds more pressure on him. But
there is a lot of pressure on Josh Allen this year.
Yeah,
like they are really putting his feet to the fire, not just the Bills, but the league in general, with the way the schedule shapes up.
And it's interesting, finishing on that too, the fact that week 4, when the Patriots came to town, the game just seemed to be too fast for Josh Allen. And that was the game that he got knocked out with the concussion. But you saw the poise that he had in Pittsburgh. It wasn't pretty, but he didn't make the big mistake. So I think that, you know, that's kind of what we've always talked about with Josh. You know, he rose to the occasion in Dallas. He rose to the occasion in Pittsburgh. For 36 minutes in Houston, he was rising to the occasion.
Yeah.
So this is, you know, I think he did learn a lot from the New England game. I still think he's going to be Josh Allen, and I don't think this is the last time we've ever seen him lateral football while running down the field.
Wow. That's scary.
I think he laterals a football, that the over-under on that is like 1. The mams that Jake Fromm's going to give you is like 2.5.
Oh, yeah.
Season.
No,
Taking the over.
I would say Jake Fromm manning me more than
That's
Josh Allen throwing another leg.
Hey, one other thing I was going to mention. Everybody was talking about delaying the division games, and I'm looking at this thinking, Jets, Miami to start, and then you have the Jets again. So they're done with the Jets by the end of October, and then New England. 4 of the 6 games are in the first half of the year in the division. Then they got the 2 at the end. So I don't know if the NFL has a plan of what to do if they do need to cut out some games or whatever. I guess we'll all find out. But if there's no fans, it's a little easier to manipulate the schedule. But it is quite the opposite of what was talked about before with the John Clayton report about starting with the interconference games. They went heavy on the division schedule. I think they put out their regular schedule, what they were planning on, and maybe there would be an adjusted one later, but I guess we'll wait to find that out. So, great. Well, thanks for being with us here on Buffalo Plus and on the Buffalo Plus YouTube page. For Dan Fates and ma'am, Jenna Cottrell, I'm Mike Catalana. Thanks for watching. We'll check you out later.